Hey, Derek. Wait, it's not Derek. But I can guarantee you we have the same amount of opinions that'll come out of Jason Crowley's mouth today as what comes out of Derek Schaefer's mouth. I got a substitute guest because Derek decided to go celebrate a year of marriage with his family in Pennsylvania. So today I asked nicely and he said yes. I've got Jason Crowley, my racing mentor, my racing buddy, kind of helps me with my whole side of racing. We're going to talk about FTR. We're actually got the computer up watching, right now it's the WMX moto going on Loretta Lynn's first day of competition. This is episode 21. We are celebrating, I've got Diet Coke. What do you have?
Water and Gatorade.
Water and Gatorade. So we're really hitting it hard on the 21st episode of Beyond the Curve, the MX podcast. We do not have our cool banner, but I do have some flying pigs and some succulents. So Jason, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing about kind of the history of you and FTR, what you feel about FTR racing, where it's gone, where it's coming to. And you and your dad are the reason I even FTR raced.
Yep.
Your dad introduced me. We were at a Christmas parade, and your dad and I were talking about racing, and he's like, "You ever tried racing off road?" No, why would I try that? He's like, time value of money. You get 2 hours of racing and you're not waiting. You should try it one time. And lo and behold, like literally in January, I went and ran my first hare scramble in the beginner class at Polk City.
Yep, I remember that.
Yep. So, thank you again for joining me.
Yep, thank you.
Before we get too far in, last week we interviewed Ryland Munson, a privateer. We got a chance to go up and visit. He raced the CGI up in South Carolina. It was supposed to be a under the lights race, and due to weather, it's Florida and South Carolina and Southeast in the summertime, they raced the night race the next morning or next day. He actually raced 250A and Open A and led all 30 laps of the motos.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Ryland. Privateer life.
Yeah.
You know, where there's money to be made, you go make the money.
Yeah.
And he did that. Also, we're watching Loretta Lynn's. I know you have some strong opinions on Loretta Lynn, so I actually want to get into those because we saw some cost of what it cost to get there, go there.
Yeah, that was posted the other day on Facebook. Yeah.
So we're going to run through real quick the Florida riders. Actually, WMX is racing. They just had 25 plus. So I don't have all the results. I've got everything they've done so far today. Vet 30. Dustin Jensen from Okeechobee finished third. Congratulations. Podium and Loretta Lynn's. I think that's cool. Like you get a podium, that's awesome. Kenny Henry from Parrish got 6th. Michael Clark from Palm Harbor got 19th. And Michael Carter from Tallahassee got 28th. 450B, which we're starting to get in some quick rider. 450B. Tommy Calloway from Dade City got 13th. Brody Sloan from Homosassa, 36. Josh Clark and Sage Lewis, both DNF'd. So I don't know if there's crashes. It's Loretta's. Stuff breaks. By the way, if you see a dog, that's Roxy. 125C, Dawson Baker from LaBelle got 16th. Then you had Leland Pfeiffer from Brooksville, 24th. Jack Mabe from Palm City, 33rd. And Noah Swanson from Pace, 36th. 85, we're getting to the young ones, 10 to 12. Tace Morgan finished 5th from Claremont. That's good. Top 5. Chase Moynihan from Jacksonville, 28th. The little kids, not the littlest of little, but the little kids, 65, 7 to 9 limited. Thor Thrasher. What a name. Thor Thrasher.
Very, very violent but strong
very,
name.
Yes, very. From Orlando, got 10th. Nolan Cobb from Palm Harbor, 18th. Carter Holmes, Middleburg, 25th. Gavin Welson from Orlando, 41st. Senior 40. This is us, or you. Well,
You.
me. But this was a beast of a race. Ben Riddle from Wildwood got 9th. So it was good to see him back riding again.
Speaking of him, I watched Chris Cooksey's podcast with him, interviewed the other day, that he did while Riddle, they just got up there, and he actually shed a lot of
About his recovery and stuff?
well, financial stuff about being at Loretta's and what being a top amateur pays versus actually being pro. It's actually a very good podcast that shed.
What podcast is it? What's it called?
Cooksey Media.
Cooksey Media.
Yeah, it's Chris Cooksey that actually.
He's got some of those.
He's very controversial,
Yes.
but he's kind of like me. He speaks his mind, and he doesn't really care what's said and how people take it. You either like it or you don't, and if you don't, the hell with you.
and if you don't know the story of Ben Riddle, go search it. We don't have time to discuss it here, but he was one of the top guys and had a little bit of a problem.
Yeah,
and
which he goes into. It was like a 30, 40-minute podcast,
Cool.
but it's kind of. It covers all that from his amateur days up to him turning pro, what happened, so on, so on, so on. It was actually a very good and like informative podcast instead of just a bunch of fluff of, oh, well, you know, this sponsor.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of that crap. It was actually, this was what happened. This is what I did wrong. This is why I did this. And I mean, he was very open and honest about it.
Oh,
I don't know whose dog that is.
I don't know either. We got a.
He came out of Mike.
Well, sorry guys, we have a stray dog roaming the back 40, but yeah. So in 2 weeks' time period, we've had Coach Rob mentioned on our podcast, who is a lightning bolt for controversy these days. We've had Chris Cooksey, and I'm seated beside Mr. Florida FTR controversy himself. On that same senior 40 plus, we had Michael Stevenson from Bonifay, 13th. Donald Letty from Oxford, 16th. Jesse Ballard, JB Ballard, finished 22nd. And Tony Padone from Parkland, 37th, I think.
Yep. Me and Ballard actually rode for the same dealership.
Really?
Yeah, when I was at the top of my heyday, he rode for the motocross side, and
Okay.
I rode for the hare scramble side.
Okay. And I mean, heck, he's up there. I think he's actually going because he wanted to see show his kids, and that kind of stuff. And you can't look at results at these and think that they're doing it for a different reason. I mean, Ben LeMay got the whole shot in the plus 25 and ended up finishing fourth. And you just don't know. Ben LeMay is a couple years out of being a pro rider.
Yeah.
So, mini senior 13 through 15. Jonathan Getz from Old Town, second. Awesome. Getting on the box. Brandon Eade from Claremont, 9th. Jace Baker from Groveland, 21st. Is that the same? Is he related to Baker's or?
I have no idea. Most of these names,
I figure there's a couple you probably know. Carson Wood, who's I don't know if he's a future MX or a HBI guy, but he finished 42nd. So obviously something happened. 450C, which I know you got opinions on even being a C rider and going to Loretta's, but Jared Cannon, Daytona Beach, 11th, and then Noah Burnett from Lakeland, the local guy, DNF'd. Open Pro Sport, Evan Ferry, 9th on a gas, but I thought he was somehow related to Triumph.
Oh, I have no idea.
So
on the motocross side, you're up to date. On the off-road side, I'm more up to date.
But Evan Ferry finished 9th in Open Pro Sport. Matty Jorgensen Jr. from Pompano Beach, 13th. Tyler Mollett from Stewart, 17th. 250B Limited, only one guy from Florida in the race. Zamir Darrell from St. Cloud, DNF'd. 65 10 to 11 Limited, so these are little guys. Brayton Craiglow from Panama City, 5th. Awesome top 10. Brody Bircher from Monteverde, 13th. Austin Keller from Orlando, 18th. Christian Tursky from Seffner, 28th. Mini Senior 1. They have way too many classes now. 12 to 14. Jonathan Getz got a second again. Carson Wood got an 8th, so now we're seeing what he can actually do. Brandon Eade from Claremont, 19th. Jace Baker from Groveland, DNS, so I don't know what happened because they're not even start. And then Master 50. This is also my class. James Nagy from DeLand, 31st. I would be, if I went there at 50 plus and I finished 31st, I'd be pretty content.
Yeah.
I mean,
honestly, if you made a lap, you'd be content.
Yeah. Oh, if you look at this track. It is beat to hell. Like it does not look fun. I can only imagine what it looked like at 7:30 this morning when the first motos went out.
Yeah.
And now there's nothing smooth. There's nothing smooth on this track. Like there's braking bumps and acceleration areas. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I watched.
Oh boy.
And we're unplugged. I watched
Copper.
We're really unplugged. like the sight laps they were doing yesterday with Bradshaw and I can't remember the other pro that were escorting each class. And like the track looked fairly mellow and fun.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, it's
as it breaks down during the day. Like we're towards the end of the day, and it is just broken down. 250B was actually a good moto. Casey Cochran from Claremont, which he's only, I don't know if he's actually only from Claremont because he trains with
there.
Alden Baker, but he was first, which takes me to the whole, are you pro or amateur? I'm kind of confused. Like Logan Best, who was one of Coach Rob's riders for a couple years, finished 8th. Sage Lewis from Destin, 30th. And then Zamir Darrell from St. Cloud, again, 40th. That dude is having a rough go of it. Can you imagine you go all the way up there and you got a DNF and a 40th?
Yeah.
And your first 2 motos of the week. Like, that's...
Yeah, you're done.
And
Well,
then
and that brings up a lot of other
we'll get
points.
there. We'll get there. I'm game for it. And then the last moto that I got to write results down on was 125 Junior BC. Another powerful name, Thor Powell from Jacksonville. So that's 2 Thors from Florida. Like, when did these names start becoming prominent? Thor. Like, do you like the gear? Do you like the cartoon character? Like, he finished 11th, by the way. So, but that's all the results of everything. Obviously, our next podcast will be after Loretta's, so we'll probably run down like overalls of Florida guys. I don't know the women right now. Hannah Hodges is in 4th.
Yeah,
Stallings, Turner, Phelps, Hodges, Sheltima, Contreras.
She came out.
Filick?
Yeah, she came out of retirement.
Ashley Filick running, and so it's good riding. But like that tells you, like Ashley Filick, like, there's some good women out there, and Filick was running for years. I mean, she was one of the top pros, women pros.
I guess she still teaches and trains, and that's what she does. But I mean, theoretically, you know, most of these girls have been racing nonstop. They're younger than her. But she rides, but she doesn't train professionally like she did.
Yeah, but there's a difference between riding and racing.
She's been on the couch and comes back and she's running 7th, and all these other girls are, you know, training year round. Yeah. It's like, well, obviously, she has, in my opinion, she has way more talent than the rest of them to come off the couch and be running 7th, you know. Yeah.
Seat time is one thing, race time is a completely different thing. But the whole reason I invited Jason tonight was I wanted to talk about FTR, his history in FTR, and kind of what that, he's got a young son that rides, and what that kind of means, because Jason was a very good younger rider. His dad has been involved in FTR when they raced wooden wheels. I'm just kidding, but
close to it.
Yeah, I mean the bikes had no suspension travel. It was like monoshocks and all that stuff, and so I kind of wanted to get in, and I also want his opinions. I mean, the one thing that we try not to be controversial, but we also won't shy away from stuff. So, one, you want to start with Loretta Lynn's, or do you want to start with FTR and what you guys started as?
Wherever you want to start. You just start asking questions and I'll start answering. We obviously know our conversations can start from Lake Wales, Florida, and go all the way up to South Carolina, and we don't run out of anything to talk about.
That's true. Jason and I, we went to South Carolina, Alabama, and by the way, we are great tourists. When we went to do a couple of the Enduros, we would kill an entire day sightseeing. And so opinions, seeing stuff, it doesn't have to be just racing, but that's kind of what we enjoy. So Jason Crowley, the racer, you're in your 30s now.
38.
38. When did this start for you?
I was 8 years old. Yeah. I started riding when I was 8. I was born in 85, so my dad, his last race was somewhere in the early 80s. I don't know the exact year. It was one of the last original races at River Ranch before they took a big break. He crashed first turn with another rider, did something to himself where he had to sleep on a wooden floor for several weeks. My mom said, "You're done, or you keep doing this, we're getting divorced because I'm not raising this kid alone." So he stopped racing, and then when I was 8, several of the guys at the fire department started riding again, and obviously he was like, he got the itch again. So then he kind of started poking me. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to have a dirt bike? And he found one, just a rundown PW that somebody had, and he took it to Tom Bragg in Avon Park. He rebuilt it, and then
Is that the guy that used to have the cycle shop right there on 27?
yes,
Yeah. That was a great. I miss those local shops like that.
yeah. So then I just started riding a little bit, and it just kind of escalated from there. He started riding again, and that was, let's see, started racing FTR in 95-ish, so this was 93, 94, somewhere in there is when this all transpired.
If you hear any background noise, we have a new neighbor and they have an airboat, and they like to test it in their yard. So, apologize for the background noise, but so when you started riding, was it off road? Did you go to motocross? Was it no, we're only doing off road? How did it start for you?
So the PW we got was just to ease me into it. At the time, obviously, I was 8. I was bigger than Gunner was. So
I it's pretty big for a P-dub.
yeah, so basically he got that just so to see if I even had the coordination to even do this. Obviously, I could ride a bicycle fine. So I was too big for it. We had it rebuilt, which helped a little bit. I raced a couple motocross races on it just to kind of, hey, do I want to do this or not?
Yeah.
And then right after that, I updated to a 1987 KDX 80, which is basically like an off-road version of a KX 80 in that year range. I rode it until I got accustomed to shifting gears and using a clutch and all that. And then my dad bought a brand new 1994 RM80. And then I rode it for 3 or 4 seasons, something like that.
So one of the things that's cool about Jason is he's not afraid to ride every brand of bikes. And you're now learning in the first 3 years of him riding, he had a Yamaha, he had a Kawasaki, and he had a Suzuki.
Yep.
Right. So I know some of us get that brand loyal stuff, but you're kind of, hey, whatever they're getting me, I'm going to ride.
Yeah. I mean, the last 3 years of me owning bikes has been a prime example. As of right now, I've owned and ridden every brand and every size of bike that's been made. And I've done most of that in the last 3 years.
Well, we got to get you on a TM and a Sherco and a Beta still.
Yeah, they're overpriced. Even more than some of the others.
So, when you first started learning, you did a couple motocross. Were you drawn to the off-road? Or were you just kind of like, that's just the direction the family went?
I don't remember exact. So my dad obviously started racing FTR in 77, 78, somewhere in there. So right after its first inception. He always did that. He did ride some motocross when he was younger and stuff.
What did FTR start out as? Was it just enduros?
It started off as enduros and ran as enduros for, I want to say, a year or two or something like that, and then they got into the hair scrambles. I don't know, like, who came up with, hey, let's try this type thing, but, and then it just escalated to what it is today. But so he took his break. I started riding a little bit. When I started riding, he also got a bike, started racing motocross because the group at the fire department, that's what they all did.
How'd Mom feel about that? With Dad starting back and you?
Honestly, I really don't remember those. I wasn't privy to those conversations. I do remember. I want to say our jump back into FTR was. I didn't have my RM80 yet, so it wasn't 94. It was before then. They had just a play race at a piece of property somewhere near the airport. It wasn't where we raced at before. I know I can remember that, but it was just kind of like a fun run type deal. We went to that with 2 of the brothers that my dad grew up racing with way back when. And then I want to say right after that's when we got back into FTR.
Okay.
Which was the start of 90, 94, 90, so somewhere in there is when we started.
Now, were you old enough, Roxy? Were you old enough to have riding heroes? Like, did you like racing? Like or was it just? Did you play baseball or soccer or anything else, or was it just motorsports?
I tried t-ball. I didn't really care for that. I've never actually cared for organized sports. I care more just individual stuff. I don't know. It's just one of them. I really don't remember specifically. I just gave me a dirt bike. I got on it, and I just kind of
And you haven't
went
gotten
to
off.
it. Yeah, I just kind of went to it like a duck in water. Like it made sense, so I did it, and it just kind of escalated. And like once I actually started riding and knew what was going on and stuff, like because back then like Jeremy McGrath was God, so obviously I liked him, and so that's kind of the era, the golden era I grew up in, which I wish life was still like that, but them days are gone.
Yeah, it's true. So you get going, you get into FTR. What was your progression like through? Because now we see like the little kids race for an hour. I think it's an hour and a half on the big track once they get to 65s. And was it the same for you guys? Was there such a thing as a Pee-wee, or I guess you were too old for that? Like, how did that happen?
I never raced Pee-wees.
Roxy.
Pee-wees came about. They were going on, I believe, when I started.
Okay.
I don't really remember because I never really watched them. Yeah, they were around. They were just starting the Pee-wee program. So back then, obviously, there was a lot less riders, so things were done a little bit differently. If I'm not mistaken, Minis rode last on Saturday.
Okay.
So you had you still had vintage, super vintage, which is Evo today. Beginner, you had two different beginner classes and a couple other classes, and then you had your quads, and then you had your minis. If I'm not mistaken, we raced last on Saturday. And then, but it was still an hour and a half for us, which back then, still like today for, most of the kids starting out equated to 2 laps type thing. But also back then, it was an hour and a half, but depending on the track length and how technical, they allowed us to vote on how many laps we wanted. Sometimes it was done at the riders' meeting. Sometimes it was done on the race line.
Wait, so they'd be like, "What are you guys feeling today?" And
pretty much.
Really?
Yep. Or, and if we showed up and it was, I remember there was one, it was my first season racing FTR. One race we went to, it was just, the property was soaked, muddy. It was actually a very sandy piece of property. It was just a very challenging piece, especially for a newer mini rider. And they were like, look, it's going to take y'all X amount of time just to do one lap. Most of y'all are only going to be able to do one in the allotted amount of time, which was an hour and a half. So like for Mini A, I think like Mini A, they set like, okay, y'all got 2, which back then was Garrett Edmonston, Brandon McAfee, or Brandon Coffey. And then like Mini B, which back then it was Mini B, Mini A, and just 65.
Okay.
So there was 3 of us. Mini A 2 laps, y'all 1 lap, and that was it. So you go out there, do your 1 lap, and you were done for the day, My baby.
But when did you? Stop. So there already are some differences from when you started to current. Gunner had just started getting to the point that he was going out looking for the adult course or the big course off of Pee-wees. As someone who had raced as a youngster to now, what does the courses look like compared to what you used to race on? I know everything, we were tougher, harder, faster, but in seriousness, what did the courses look like for the the mini kids back then to what they look like now?
I would say in general, just a general statement, the courses today are easier than what we rode back then. Back then, pretty much they'd stick an arrow on a tree and they might go in and do some trimming or whatever, and you just went. Now they go through and they bush hog, or they do this or they do that. So it's, in my opinion, a lot of stuff is tamed down.
Okay.
Like now, if it rains and gets too muddy in a spot, they'll reroute, or they'll do that. Like back then, that didn't happen. Like if they rerouted something, it was literally like if you went 6 inches into it, you were done. Like it was legit impassable. Period. You couldn't walk through it. You couldn't ride through it. Nothing. If it was walkable or rideable, you went through it. Nowadays, it's been tamed way, way down.
And what do you think and I'm only asking because I enjoy the rideable tracks. We've had a couple that were like, okay, this is a test.
Yeah.
But it is, not going to lie, kind of fun to be able, because I remember when I first started, which was way later, almost in the 2000s, that there were a couple, you're like, if I get through this, I am so excited.
Yeah.
But now it's like, if I don't get through something now on today's tracks, I'm kind of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, is one better than the other? Are we looking for a masculinity contest? Or are we looking for and I'm truly curious.
No, I just think it's been watered down severely, at least in Florida, because like us going out of state and even run like the way some of the enduros are in Florida that we've run, the way they do some of the tracks where they may have went through and did a little bit, but they haven't messed with it a whole lot. That was more what the hair scrambles were like back then.
I do remember more face slappers back in the day.
Yeah.
You used to have stuff, you come around a corner and you're like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah. Like
you don't see that much
like
anymore.
now, the watermelon farm.
Mm-hmm.
There's one bad palmetto section on that piece of property that in general they put everybody through every year. The guys that have been around don't bitch about it because they know.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you went to tracks where the entire track was like that. So there at that property, you have, say, 100-foot long section. It's not that bad. You just go through it,
Yeah.
and as long as you're moving, you're fine. And they whine and they cry about it. Go ride 40 miles of that.
Yeah.
Then you have a reason to bitch.
The only thing I have in comparison is the 1 year, I think 2 years I did GNCC at River Ranch. And they went under the bridge
Yeah.
and there was...
You had that, what was it, 1 mile section?
Yeah. And it was straight palmettos.
Yep. If you made that, you were good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it was, it was sand whoops all over the place. But there was literally a mile section of just hang on. And all the
Yep.
Northerners like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's like riding dry rocks.
Yep.
Just hit it and go.
Yep.
Like, don't let out the gas and go. But I can't imagine doing that for the whole expanse of a race. We don't see that anymore. Like, I think the Watermelon Farm has pretty couple good sections where they turn you in and out. But we don't see that. But is that also, there's a change in the courses? There are different types of obstacles. Maybe we're going faster and so you're getting to stuff faster than you used to?
Yes. That, to me, everything has evolved around the evolution of motorcycles. So, back in the day when they didn't have any suspension, they just rode and whatever was there, which in general was rougher. And then as they've gotten suspension, they've changed things a little bit. And then as bikes have evolved, the tracks have, in essence, opened up more because the bike can go faster, so the track is faster.
Yeah.
Which they mellow it down to where it it's all a hodgepodge of stuff and pieces that you put together, and I think the evolution of where the bikes are today have helped the sport but killed the sport in the same way.
A question for you. If one of these 9 clubs in the FTR, I think there's 9, maybe there's 10, I'm not sure. The clubs that are in FTR, if they took one of the existing piece of property and built a 1995 hare scramble, would riders enjoy it?
The real riders would.
But the guys that are coming out to
the old school 1% of FTR that have been around would enjoy it. The rest would not.
But who are we catering to? Are we catering to that 1%, or are we catering to?
That brings up a whole nother.
but you know what I mean though? Like,
yeah.
But maybe like you and I have been out of state, and there's other riders that race FTR that also go out of state, and they see different things. Like, we don't have to get into it, but I went to Sorks a couple times, and I've done some of that, and I've done some Mid-East. And the Mid-East is basically the junior version of GNCC. You go to a GNCC now, it's wide.
Yeah.
Also, they've run a lot of the same properties. There's only so many places you can put things. Those tracks now, it's 3 hours of sprint time.
Yeah.
Or for old men, it's 2 hours of sprint time. Yeah. You go to a Mid-East, there's still sections where this is the quad trail, you go to a Sorks race, there's no quads.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, wait, is this a hare scramble or an enduro?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the first time I went to a Sorks race, there's guys bailing off over here. I'm like, here's the track. Oh, wait. The track can go over here.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be fun to see one of those races in Florida. Because, we have sugar sand. We get mud. Like, it poured here. There were puddles out there. It's now sugar sand. We could go walk and probably find dry earth.
Yeah, I mean, we've had right at 6-7 inches in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Which is, well, that's not counting today. That's last night and night before. So it might actually be pretty decent. If it'll
good riding.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we could go cut a track in here and make different lines, and you could go over 6 inches. You might hit a stump.
Yeah.
But you also might find a line that's completely smooth. And I just sometimes wonder if maybe not a whole track, maybe a section. That enduro, the last enduro we did, where they literally just cut they just cut a line, and it was like you ran this, and there was a beat-in path. The last section, we put up arrows.
The
old school.
Yeah.
So they didn't do the whole enduro that way. But what happened? How cool would it be? Because FTR, you and I each got our own section. I cut mine. Okay, we're going around each tree, and we're weaving. You go and you're like, oh, there's a section of woods. There's an arrow. There's an arrow. I want you to come through, and we're just going to chop a path. I think it would be cool to have a section like that. I think Brooksville sometimes does that in some of theirs. They did a couple just new sections this year. But what do you think about something like that?
I mean, I understand that, like, with some of these properties and some of the clubs, like, in order to get from point A to point B, you have no option but to go through here, which equates to we have to mow this down.
Yeah.
I get that 100%. I understand that. Same thing like when your property was completely wooded. If you wanted to go to that point, you either went all the way around this way or it was a pain to get through. So I get that. I think it would be easier for track layout if they just did stuff like that. Quit catering to the masses. Catering to the masses has put FTR in the shape that it's in today. The masses are not what you want. You want the quality and the decent people. Catering to the masses, you start having an influx of stuff you don't want.
Yeah.
Well, if you make everything just simple, everybody and their brother shows up. You make everything hard, only the real men stay standing. The rest of them, they go away.
Yeah. Speaking of the real men versus when you guys started FTR versus now, and this could be when you started amateur motocross to amateur motocross now, what do the pits look like versus when you started with your dad in the 90s to you and your parents going to the race now? What does that look like?
So when my dad started in the 70s, pretty much everybody was in a pickup truck. You had the occasional people that had a van. If they had a van, they had money. If they had a motorhome, they were either legit or they had a lot of money. And it pretty much stayed that way until he stopped when he got hurt. Then when we came back, obviously you still have people in pickup trucks. Enclosed trailers were kind of starting to come around. You had vans, a couple motorhomes here and there, but it was just, Class C, stuff like that. Box vans, you would see them. If you were cool and had money, you had a box van, or if, you were a factory guy or whatever.
Yeah. Well, box trucks are, that's the thing. That was the thing.
And as a kid, I wanted a box van. I'd take one today.
As a 30-year-old guy starting out,
Yeah.
we were in the pickup truck.
Yeah.
I will tell you, as a 30-year-old, I was looking at box trucks like, oh man, we get a box truck, we can sleep in it. I was 30 years old. No one was ever going to do anything for me.
Yeah.
And as a beginner, I was like, we got to get a box truck.
Yeah.
We got to get a box truck.
Yeah. Well, we started out, so my dad's black pickup that he's had since 1988. That's what we started out in.
Which still runs and can make my property in two-wheel drive, which is amazing.
Still has it and still running like it's still the original motor, original transmission, original clutch. It's had plugs, I think, one time. Like it's
nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So me, him, and my mom, me in the middle in that thing.
No way.
Yep.
With two bikes?
Yep.
And all the gear.
Yep. That's what we started in, and then when we started racing FTR, my dad had bought my mom a Ford Econoline van. So we had that, and then we bought a 6x10 enclosed trailer from Don Thrasher, who owned, I can't remember the name of the company, or the trailer dealer, but he had a trailer dealer, and that's what he did. Bought it from him.
I don't know if he's related to the Thor Thrasher.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he had any kids, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what we started with. So, we kind of jumped in and had some stuff to start with.
But you were almost factory with a van and a trailer?
I know.
Dude. Dude, that's big time.
Yeah. So that's what we started with, and that's what kind of everybody had. More people stayed at hotels, stuff like that. It was nothing like it is today.
And today, am I wrong in saying, if you were to take a drone shot of a standard FTR weekend, it would look like a mini motocross national?
Yes.
The people, the equipment,
yes,
the rigs. There are guys coming in $500,000 motorhomes with 40-foot trailers behind them.
Yep.
And that's where we've gone to.
With one PW50 or something like that. It's like...
Yeah. They race on Saturday morning and they're done and they go home.
Yeah. Like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah. But I understand that. But I also... We were talking to racers, and you know what? If you're going to be there all weekend, where else can you go in the state of Florida and camp for $20 for a weekend?
Yeah.
And it is...
It's $20 to get in, but the gas money to get there and the maintenance on a motorhome is way more.
You're right. But if I take that same motorhome and I go to St. Augustine and I'm on the beach, I'm still going to have the maintenance.
Yeah. If you do all that with it.
Yeah. The greatest thing, I think, and this is the one thing you and I both agree on, is the family time.
Yeah.
Of being at those events. I see you walking around with Gunner and Mindy walking around with Gunner. Some of my favorite times I walk around with Michelle and we just go look at stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a safe environment. Yes, we'll get into but you're in an enclosed area.
Yeah.
And you're there, and everybody there has the same goal that you have. So it's a like-minded group of people.
In theory.
And I don't care if you go to an FTR race or you go to mini O's. There's people running around in golf carts, there's people running around mini bikes, there's people. You're going to have that thing, but this FTR group, you go to an FTR race now, people are like, "Oh, FTR, what is that?" And it's like, "Can I send you a video?" Yeah. I don't think people actually understand. Like, when you tell people you race off-road motorcycles, they think you're a Willy boy here in Highland Manor.
Yep.
And we're not. We're not.
Yeah.
We actually.
I've got to where I just say, yeah, I'll race motocross or what. Like it's just easier than trying to explain what we do to just some random
Yeah.
person. It's just easier.
No, we don't. We don't do. If we do backflips, it's by accident. It's not on purpose. But we race off road, and it's hard to explain. It is hard to tell people what you do. But when did you have your first success? Where was that?
So, like I said, only raced a PW50 a couple times on motocross.
Did you win your first race?
No.
Okay. I bet my first race. I've been a set of handlebars.
Honestly, racing a PW50 those couple times, that's the only time I've ever been beat by a girl in the same class. So I did a couple races of PW50. I want to say I did a couple races on. I did one race on that KDX80, one motocross race, and may have did a couple on RM80 just to do it. I did. I want to say 2 seasons. So like I said, they had Mini A, Mini B, and then 65. I did 2 seasons in Mini B. In between season 2 and season 3, our friend that grew up racing with my dad, they were from Avon Park. He was board of directors of one of the positions in FTR. And Mini A back then, I mean, realistically, you had 2 to 3 in Mini A. You had Garrett, Brandon, and then occasionally a third rider. But Mini B continued to grow. 65 continued to grow. So I pitched the idea to him, like, well, what about coming up with a Mini C? And he, when I pitched the idea to him, he was like, before we go any further, is this for you to create a class that you will win? And I'm like, no, that's not. Because back then, you know, on average, I want to say there was probably around 15 to 20 of us to race.
Yeah. Well, before we go any further, FTR now we're getting 1,000 or over per race.
Yes.
What was a race weekend for FTR?
Say 500.
Yeah. So we've doubled.
500, 600 on a big event.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably 4 to 5 on average.
Okay. And now we're over 1,000.
So basically, yeah. So basically, what on average we would have on Saturday and just rider total now is what you would have for the whole weekend.
Yeah. So that's I want people to understand, like, that's the difference in the growth of.
Yeah.
So on a weekend, there was only 2 guys or 3 guys in a class, and that wasn't because the class was weak. There weren't as many people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a massive difference in that growth, and we're going to touch on that growth. But okay, keep going. So you're a little kid, and you're already. So this is the politicking you started early for you.
In theory,
You were a little kid.
Yeah.
Ah, so why are we starting Mini C?
So I saw a need because, like, the class was very. You had the front half, the middle half, the back half. The back half there was a big difference. I was in that back half. So if there was 20 riders, I was somewhere between normally 17 and 20. I was somewhere in there. So I pitched the idea. I'm like, well, what about making a Mini C? And pretty much the back half of that class is what starts Mini C.
Yeah.
And he asked, well, is this? And I'm like, especially at the time, I'm like, no, I'm not going to.
I'm still going to be an 85C.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be.
Because my first season, like, I'm next to last. I never finished last. I was normally next to last or second or third. Like, I was back there.
I've been there.
My
okay.
second season in Mini B, my best finish was like an 8th or a 9th out of, just say 20 rides, something like that, which was back then was like, oh, I broke top 10. I did good.
I am the shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt great.
I want sprinkles on my ice cream.
Yeah. My other finishes, we're still, say, 15th, So, yeah, I improved a little bit. So, he pitched it. Obviously, it got approved. And sure enough, I came out and won the class. Which was not the intention of what I was proposing. I've got 5 first, 5 second, and a third and a fourth.
So did you get booted?
Yes. Problem was, so during that time, obviously I started when I was 8 years old on PW50. I was too big for it. Went to a KDX 80, which was,
Hey, what class would that run in?
I mean, it was a two-stroke. It was just
okay.
an air-cooled two-stroke drum brake 80. It was kind of size-wise. It was in between the size, height-wise, of a 60 and a traditional 80.
Okay.
So a little bit lower seat height. So I got onto it, I fit it, and then I got RM80, which I could kind of tippy-toe when I got onto it.
Must have felt like a rocket ship, though.
Oh, yeah. The first time I went and rode with a group of friends, I did something stupid, and visor ripped off, tire marks down. Like, I screwed up. I learned real quick how much power it had.
You're like, wait a second, I was on an 80. I was on an 80. And you realize it's like two different animals.
Yeah. So by the time I got to Mini C, I was full grown, touching flat-footed 80 rider. Like, so during that season, I was still growing, and during the season, my dad. So that was 97, 98 season. So during that season, my dad had bought me a brand new 1998 RM125, which I could tiptoe on at that time. So if I'm big enough to tiptoe on a 125, I'm definitely too big for an 80. But obviously, because I'm winning the class, you're not going to pull me off the bike.
Are you just hanging off the back of this 80?
Pretty much. That season was the year that just Florida flooded for an entire year. So every race except for one, and even that race had a few mud sections. Every race was a mud race. Every one. With that, and me being as big as I was, it was definitely a big advantage because...
You were like a tractor?
Yep. And everybody else was falling and couldn't get their bike out. I just stepped off and grabbed a bike and moved it. I actually, during that season, you know who Scott Summers is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rode the XR 600.
Yeah.
His signature thing was he could take that 600 and pick it up. I actually, during that season, got to where I could grab that RM80 and cradle it and pick that RM80 up off the ground. Well, that came in handy during that season. So that kind of gives you a perspective of how big I was on this 80. I wasn't a typical 80 rider, and it's a mud.
In the class they made for you.
Yeah, yeah. So it definitely.
How'd that feel getting your jacket at the end of the season?
I mean, like back, I didn't know. Like it.
You were trying to do good. It had a consequence that
Yeah.
you didn't know.
I mean,
you were...
I won the class and it was cool, but it was like looking back, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like being excited. Like I was, but it wasn't. It wasn't like a big deal, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It happened, but that's also. You started riding. You get this bike. You get this bike, and all of a sudden, like you fit this bike, and you're like, oh, all the skills I've learned, I can now use because I can actually use them.
And it was like, honestly, it was an overnight thing. Because so 2 seasons in Mini B, did whatever. They created Mini C. So during that summer, I went to one of the riding schools at Dade City, same as you. My dad just took me up there
But you probably got to ride with the kids your age. I had to ride with the kids.
True. I was a kid. You were an adult riding with 12-year-olds.
Yes.
I went to the class, rode to class, was it the next weekend? I want to say the next weekend they had just a fun race, just like a little GP type hair scramble deal down at County Line Raceway in Ona.
Oh yeah. God, I missed that track. That was a sand beast.
Went down there and finished third. I was like, okay. And then come out, win the class. Mini C. And that's when it kind of.
So did you go to Mini B or did you go straight to 125?
No, I went straight to Junior B the next
Okay.
year. So I went from Mini C on 80 to Junior B because there was no Junior C on a 125 the next year.
Oh, the dogs are going for a walk. With the guest walker.
Yep.
Gunner.
Hopefully your wife is behind them because I ain't gonna listen to him.
Sorry, guys. We don't do many things out here on our porch, but it's when the family's here, they're all excited. They're going for a walk, and it's something we do every day. So, hi, Gunner.
Yeah, there she is.
And we're watching currently college 1824. Pascal is leading. So, all right, continuing on with the FTR history, and you go to junior B.
Yep. Which
and
back then.
So are you on 85 still?
No, 125.
125.
Back
okay.
then, you had junior A, junior B, which raced in the morning race
Okay.
on Sunday morning.
Okay. With the old folk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And back then, everything was 10-year increments. So you had.
What do you think about that? Why do you? I know you got an opinion on this. I'm with you on this one. What happened? We have so many classes.
We created classes and made changes, in my opinion. Not all of them, but there's been, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, a lot of stuff was created to cater to a lot of groups and a lot of people. They were in this class. There was no way they could win a class. There was enough participation to where they could create a class, and they knew they would win. So classes were created. Now, I understand as riders get older, things change, riders slow. I get that, and I do agree with at a certain point. Okay, let's break it up a little bit. But then also at a certain point, it's like, all right, you're 70 years old. You're still able to ride.
Congratulations.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like, let's quit worrying about chasing championships. Like, at that point, you should know better.
I've been in the sport now. It took me 19 years to win a race. 19 years. I haven't raced that long, but I've been racing, let's say, 13 years?
Yeah, 30 years here.
Oh, I guess that dog's still out. How many, I've never won a class.
Mm-hmm.
I've never, ever won a class. You've raced for how many years?
30.
How many classes have you won?
Championships?
Yeah.
One.
One?
Yep.
And that's all? But you keep going?
Well, I've only won one because growing up, the way I was raised and a lot of the other FTR kids were raised, that some are still around today, we didn't sit in classes and sandbag them. So like, I won Mini C, I went to Junior B. I rode 1 year in Junior B. I think I finished, was it 4th or 5th overall for the year? Something like that. Which, first year on 125, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Back then, you want to get faster, you move up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't move up to Junior A. I went straight to the afternoon race. Went to B200. That's what we did back then. We didn't sit there and sandbag a class. Now, there were riders that stayed in classes, and there's a lot of them that were skill-wise and speed-wise, they were perfectly right in what they did. You had some that kind of sandbag until they could win something, and then they would bump up.
Well, there is a way in the FTR to completely stay in a class so you can try to win it. There's
ways you can win it. It's hard, but there's ways you can win the championship and still stay in the class the next year and do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the guy that won Vet B and beat me in the Enduro Series this year. Yeah. He won the class last year, but because of the AMA ranking system, they never promoted him. And he wasn't man enough, in my opinion, to go to A.
Yeah.
So he stayed in B.
And I'm with you on that aspect of, I understand. In my other life, I was good at things.
Yeah.
I'm not good at racing. I have a blast. I love it. It's the most fun I ever have. I mean,
I've never seen somebody that enjoys having the shit kicked out of them on a regular basis and comes back and asks, "Can I have some more?"
I love the sport. I love all aspects of racing. And there was a time I had a chance to win a class. Mm-hmm. There was also a time I had a chance, if I didn't win a race, I could have stayed in the class. Mm-hmm. Man, there is something cool about winning a race. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to win the race.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was not win a race, and then I have the whole rest of the season to go win as many races. So there's a way to win. I understand championships yes, my nephews won, my brother-in-law's won. They got the jacket, they got the number plate, and if I could win one, I would be so pumped up.
Yeah.
But I also agree with you in the sense of if there's a place for me to go where when I got bumped from C to B, dude, I went from winning by 7 minutes to finishing 17th.
Yeah.
And I didn't ride poorly. We raced in January. We raced at the end of January. I went from 7-minute lead to finishing 17th. And it's like, oh, this is what I got to do.
Yeah.
I think we should all be wanting to better ourselves, but maybe for some, I'm of the opinion, right or wrong, you're going to get my opinion. I think some people either live through their kids or they didn't have enough success as a kid that they want to have that success now in a hobby.
Yeah.
Like they didn't win the championship in the 8 and under youth soccer league.
Yeah.
So, well, heck, if I can do it now, I know I'm smart. I'm an accountant. I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know any accountants that actually are FTR. I'm just saying, I know the math to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stand here and dadgummit, when we go to Orlando to that and the banquet's really fun. It's nice. They call you up, you get your jacket, you get the number 1 plate. And heck, as an FTR member now, it's an AMA series, you get a true number 1 plate.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's cool as shit. But is that worth it? And that's where I am. I don't know.
There's some that, yes, that it's, you can see it at all levels in all classes. You got, like you said, you have some that live through their kids. You have some that didn't have success or this or that, whatever. So they're out there at 50 years old thinking they're the next big thing, and it's like, dude,
Why you got to go 50?
I don't know.
I'm not the next big thing. I know that.
Okay, 60.
Okay, 60. No, I know what you're saying. Like, I mean, I think like there was a moment in time where Garrett Edmondson was the shit.
Yes.
And he still races now. But time has passed him. He's still good.
Yes.
He's still very good. But the way he should race now versus what he did 10 years ago is different.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at I'm not even calling him out. I'm saying, like, you look at the time. These guys racing Loretta's. Ben LeMay. Ben LeMay was a pro making money. Ben LeMay now owns a race tech. He works at Denver, motocross there. He's trying to have fun. He still has sponsors, but they're not.
That's a whole nother discussion there too.
But they're riding for a different reason.
Some of them, yes.
Jeff Emig isn't. What's he getting from winning? He's not getting anything.
He's endorsing his brand.
He's endorsing the brand,
and
but
keeping his.
But did it hurt him that he finished second today behind Mike Brown?
I don't know. Maybe it did.
No, I don't think so. Chris Kiefer finishes third.
Yeah, the son or the dad?
No, the dad.
The dad.
The dad's 40 years old. He tried to qualify for nationals. He failed. He's here racing the plus 40 or whatever class he's running. He finishes third. He's a freaking good rider.
Yeah. But he's like Kiefer. He has, he's one of the big dogs in the industry. He tests. He does this, does that. Has his own website.
But so is Mike Brown and Jeff Emig.
I mean, yeah. I was never really an Emig fan.
You don't have to be a fan. You also weren't a James Stewart fan, but you've even admitted, your dad's even admitted that his broadcasting is damn good. So
I haven't watched any race that he's broadcasted.
It's very good. He's actually very good.
Yeah.
And I will tell you the reason that we have gone off tangents. The reason James Stewart is so good.
This is what our normal 8-hour trips, 8 to 9-hour trips consist of. Is this the whole way there? The whole way back, about halfway, it stops because we're kind of sleep deprived.
trying to stay awake. But James Stewart is really good because when James Stewart was a pro, he watched video nonstop. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what he does now as a broadcaster?
Watch video.
Watches video,
yeah.
And guess what he has? Analysis that you ain't hearing from other broadcasters. Look
Correct.
at this bike. He even shouted out on his podcast, hey, he was digging on Adam C. and Cirillo for, dude, you can't get beat by Ty Masterpool. You can't get beat. You can't. He goes, but your bike looks good. Mm-hmm. You're getting traction. And it's like, Weege is awesome. Weege is not giving me that analysis.
Yeah.
Ricky Carmichael gives me different. But Bubba, I know his name's James Stewart now, but Bubba gives me the analysis like, oh,
Well, he's actually ridden. He's been a top rider. He knows.
and he studied it.
Yeah.
And it's for all his flaws, the guy watched video.
Yeah.
That's all he did.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we're not seeing James Stewart out here riding. We're seeing guys that just, hey, I'm having fun. I'm doing this. And I think back to our original circle, chasing that championship, there is nothing wrong with it. Because it is cool to win a championship. Yeah. It is cool. You've won one. MJ's won one.
But
Mike's
doing
won
it within reason.
Yes.
And keeping it in perspective and keeping it as it should be. Like, I know some of these guys that do this, just FTR, they have the money to do things. They have the money just to piss away and buy stuff. Like, I get that.
Multiple bikes. It
Yeah.
is amazing to go to an FTR race and guys have 2 or 3 bikes sitting in
Yeah.
a trailer and you're like, we're only racing one.
Yeah. Like, I get that. But there's a lot that live that and that life and have that persona about them that have no reason to be doing that. Or, financially, there's no way in hell they
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
But they're doing that because, and like, you see it even more in motocross. Like, I've got to have an $800 helmet. I've got to have a set of gear that costs $300 for pants and jerseys. Like, why?
Yeah.
I got a, just off, kind of with this, but sponsor thing, but kind of off on the side. Like, I got in a discussion with a guy, one of the On the Pipe podcasts, who covers all GNCC
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, Stuart Baylor does that. And
Yes, he's one of their main commentaries that comes on there. There was a clip of one of the last GNCCs that was one of the mud races, and
Oh, God, the snowshoe.
no, it wasn't that one. It was
Oh.
one of the other ones. And it had something to do with the rider that was doing a pit stop, and they said something about it. And you saw that he had his normal MX handguards, but they had made makeshift extensions on the outside to make them bigger.
So he wasn't running factory elephant ears. He made his own.
Correct. And I brought that up. I'm like, I would like to hear on your podcast from, say, like Stu or some of these other guys.
Yeah.
Why don't y'all actually just run what's actually available out there to where you're not running makeshift handguards that do absolutely nothing? And some rider who, unfortunately, was a quad rider, came on there and commented about, well, it has to do with sponsors and da-da-da-da-da, just going off on this. And I'm like, I'm well aware of that, but, like the elephant ears that I have,
Yeah.
they're manufactured by Moose.
Yeah.
Okay, well, guess what? Rip the label off the front of them, and then they're manufactured by nobody.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, do you want me to race and keep my hands dry and clean, or do you want me to race and struggle and have piss poor results?
Well,
Like,
there's many Fox riders that run Alpine Star under protectors.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's because we can't see it, we don't know.
Exactly.
But because you run a certain, I understand. Like, if you're really you're very skilled. If I showed you my brush guards, you'd be able to tell me if they were a Cherubic or Cypress.
Yeah.
As a normal fan, I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
what they were. So, if the best company that makes elephant ears is Moose, or that's what you can get a hold of,
Yeah.
by God, when I went to race Ironman a couple years ago, it was cold. I didn't realize it was going to be cold. It was cold.
Yeah.
Well, I had no gloves. I run a certain kind of glove. I'm not sponsored, but I run
Yeah.
a certain kind of glove. Well, guess what? They had 100% insulated gloves. I bought 2 pair.
Yeah.
I don't run 100% gloves, but my favorite gloves that I own are those cold weather
Yeah.
100% gloves. If I get a sponsorship, I'll just take a black
Yeah.
Sharpie, and because I'm running those gloves.
Yeah. But this quad ride, he went on his little thing, and I'm like, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been sponsored by, like, I get it. I understand all that. And he was like, well, I'm sponsored by this tire company, and but I run these tires, just running his mouth. And my response back to him was, so how many sets of free tires does that company give you? No response. Who cares? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why are you... And that's a whole nother discussion about sponsors. But it's like, who cares? Like, run what you want to run. Same in a pro level. If my handguard company doesn't offer something that I need, either make it,
Yeah.
or guess what? I'm going to figure out a way to run this to where I can do what I need to do.
Yes, and
I don't-
especially in the off-road world, I think motocross is a little more guarded. I haven't figured out why more guys. I think motocross is more of a look. It's a look.
The handguards distract them.
Because I haven't figured out, like, if I'm running some of these I've ridden on motocross tracks.
Yeah.
Dude, that stuff hurts. Yeah. Why not just run them? Like, it's okay. It's okay.
It visually distracts them.
From
They
what?
can't- I don't know, because they're sensitive.
Oh, okay. Maybe they should start trying it at a younger age. And they'll get
I mean,
used to
have
it.
you seen their riding gear now? It's getting tighter and tighter.
Dude, you and I cannot
I
wear
like a decent fitting gear that's not like baggy, but not like tight.
You and I are
get
not
it.
made for 7.
I told you that a long time ago. No, I'll fit into it. I'm like, okay.
You and I are not made. I would love, since they're a local company, I would love to wear 7, but you and I would look like the Michelin Tire Man. We would look like Babendum
Oh yeah.
if we wore
Oh yeah.
7.
And it's overpriced.
Yeah, but we could get a sponsor.
No.
Old men race off road. We need 7 gear.
You know what my sponsor is? I buy discounted, going out of date MSR gear from Rocky Mountain.
Do you know what sponsor is? I take all your old gear that you don't want anymore. I have Alias gear. I don't know what year it's from. I have Alias gear. 2 sets that I use for practice.
Yep.
But nonetheless, so you had success. I don't even know how we got on this.
So we're coming out of Junior B.
Junior B. Okay, God, Junior B. You had success. You won a class. You went to Junior B.
Yep.
You did not have success. You went to 200B.
I had decent. I finished, top 5 my first year.
Okay. That's not bad.
No, for first year on 125.
Yeah.
And
That you can tippy toe.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, I grew into the bike as the season went on.
And you only had a Kickstarter. My God, you have the same bike they have today for an RM.
Well, the 07 was better than the 98. Because the 96, 97, 98 still had that's 3 years they went back to the conventional forks. And then they went to basically the current design. Well, no, they did 96, 97, 98. 99, 2000 was a body style. And then 2001 to 07 was basically the same.
Is that the Carmichael years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he went to Suzuki and
Because it was Carmichael, and then there was
04?
because Dungey went in 10, so we're
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
before that. So I was wondering because I always wonder the development side of things when they get these pros that they want.
yeah, I'm sure they play a role in
Yeah.
making certain changes.
Yeah.
So Junior B, I was on that 125, rode that 125 and B200. I rode that bike for 4 or 5 years, something like that. We had it built for, what was it? So I finished, I want to say like 4th or 5th, something like that, in B200 for the year.
Were you running a stock bike or were you running a legal bike?
No, it's stock. So Junior B was stock bike. B200 was stock bike. The next year I went to A200.
Damn, you went from B200 to A200 right, boom, 1 year.
That's what we did back then. We didn't sit there and sandbag classes. You want to get faster,
Because
you moved up.
A200, you're starting to run up with the 250 and open class guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So when I went that off season, we had a friend that we met through racing who was a Honda instructor at MMI, and he did mechanic work on the side. So we took him the suspension and the motor for that RM. He took it to school with him and did all kinds of magic to that motor. It was still 100% legal stock bore 125, but it had to giddy up and go of a 250.
They made it pretty inside.
Yep.
Yeah.
He did all kinds of stuff.
Port, polished, all that jazz.
We had to run race fuel in it. So when we got that bike back, we had a lot of playing around to do with fuel, jetting. The suspension had been done. Like, it was completely worked. He did things to it that, unless you know how to specifically do those little things, nobody else gets done.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the little technician things of the good technician. Hey, if I do this, it equals this.
Yeah.
It was one of them deals.
Yeah, it's true engine, but I think now was it a Twisted? They've kind of mastered that in the
Twisted,
race.
yeah, there's
in
Twisted
in
development.
engine,
Yep.
the engine compartment, because
Yep.
literally besides factory bikes, they have probably over half the field that they're building engines for, and they've mastered that because those guys have that skill set.
Yeah.
There's you can take it to Joe Blow engine guy, and he's going to be able to do the stuff, but the actual guys that are like, kind of like Mitch Payton building a pipe.
Yeah.
You know, those they're guys that just have a skill set.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have that skill set.
I do with some things. It just depends.
We're going to get into that part.
So when I moved up to Junior B, pretty much the group I was with, that was Mini A, Mini B, we moved up to Junior B, Junior A together. Then when I went to B200, basically the same group moved up. Garrett and Brandon went to A200. The rest of us were in B200. And I finished 4th or 5th overall, something like that, whatever it was for the season. But pretty much that whole group, we finished together every race.
Bless you.
There was different winners and stuff, but every race, it was like 6 of us.
Yeah.
We were always, every event, we were right there together. We moved up. When we moved up to A, that's when like some stayed behind, some moved up. Garrett went to AA.
Damn, from 200A straight to AA.
He did Junior A. He did A200, not a whole season, I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't do a whole season.
Was it still the same rule of if you win?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, he high pointed from A200, and then he went to AA. Brandon went to A250. Brandon, I can't remember if he did a whole season or if it was the next season where he got paralyzed, and that was the end of his racing career. And then there was me, Michael Jones, who still races.
Yeah. Know that name.
Jocko.
Woolman.
Yes.
Yeah. He was a good racer.
Yep. I can't remember. There was a few. Carlos Rivera from Miami. And there was a couple others. Pretty much all of us except for Carlos were on Suzuki's and A200.
It's like the RM Army.
Yep.
Back in the day.
Yep. Yep. He was the only outsider. He was on Yamaha at the time.
And that was before they were the beasts that they are now.
Yep. Yep.
That's crazy. So, A200, how did that season go?
It was definitely a different pace. All them guys were way fucking faster.
Because you're not just, yes, you're racing in your class, but at that point you're looking at, can I make top 20?
Yeah.
Because you're in the A's now, and
Yeah.
it's like, ooh, can I pass? I remember being a C guy in the C200 class going, ooh, how many of the open C guys can I
Yeah,
pass? And,
yeah.
and you start racing beyond your own class.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, I did okay. My goal was always to finish top 10. I achieved the goal one time. I achieved that goal and won that race. I won that race by 10 minutes.
Holy moly.
It was pretty much, it was up there in Mayo.
Oh, yeah.
It was just everything fell right that day and things worked. And
Are these still, have tracks started to evolve, or is this still old school style tracks?
it's old school.
Old school style
Yep.
tracks.
Yep. It was just sandy, dusty. The other guys had some misfortune, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And by the end of the first lap, before we got to chicane, I passed Carlos, and that's all she wrote. And then I was gone from there, and I just never let off.
So you won a race,
And finished top 10, same race.
top 10 overall.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Like, that's one of those, like, dream things. I
Yeah.
might buy myself a Rolex if I did something like that. Like, but how did the season end up for you on that? Did
I
you
think
stay there the whole season?
I finished 4th or 5th for the year, something like that. I was.
Because the 200 class, or the 200 class, basically, for those that aren't aware, you can run 125 up to KTM 200.
Yeah, that was pretty much, it was expanded for the KTM.
Yeah.
Because originally, well, the original back then, you had AA, you had A Open, you had A250, you had A125, then you had A200 for the KDX 200s, the old WR 200, a couple other oddball ones. And then they combined the two classes, put them together, and then by that point, the KDXs, for the most part, were dead,
Yeah.
and the KTMs came along.
And the KTM is a very, it's not a trail bike, it's a race bike.
Yes, it'll do either. It
Yeah.
depends on what. It's one of them bikes. Whatever you can build it for, whatever you want to do. You want it to scream, it'll scream. If you want it to act like a tractor, it'll act like a tractor.
But the 200 class, for the most part, is not a class that you stay in. You kind of evolve to something else.
No, because back then, they had a 4-stroke class, but that was like the XRs, the KLX,
Okay.
like the old heavy 4-strokes. So 4-strokes weren't. They had just started coming around. They were still like, because they came out with the YZ 400 in '98. Those were just starting to kind of trickle in, so they were in the 4-stroke class. So you still had 125s were still very prevalent.
So it was
250,
big, so it was more important back then than kind of it's the development class
Yes.
now.
Yes, back then, A250 was big. A200 stayed pretty big during my time there.
What'd you run in the open class?
So obviously you had the 4-strokes coming in. You could run those, or you rode a KX 500, a CR 500.
Oh.
You had
Good God! And those old horse scramble? Oh my Lord! That doesn't even seem fun.
you had the KTM, the 300 or the 360. Those were out there during that time period. So there's a little bit in that class. That class was kind of a group that just that's what they rode.
So the 250 was probably the dominant class.
250 was your younger, faster kids. A125, A200 was your faster kids coming up. You did, in general, unless you were small, you did a year or two on a 125, and then you went to a 252 stroke.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
numerous of them went to AA was the next step.
Yeah. In AA, you can run whatever you want,
Yep.
run what you brung, whatever.
But
makes
even
you
back
happy.
then, AA was, for the most part, 252 strokes is
Yeah.
what they rode.
Yeah. Which is still cool in off road that the 252 stroke, 300 2-stroke, heck, even some of the 125, 200, they're still. You don't get. It's not just all 4-stroke sounds at an off road race. You do
No.
get the 2-stroke still has a place.
Yeah.
All right, so we've made it from little kid to now you're getting fast.
Yep.
When does shit start hitting the fan for injuries, or are we still far away from that yet?
It's all kind of a blur and runs together. So
Because there was a time you took a big break.
yeah. So during B200 or right before B200 is when we got hooked up with OAS Power Sports out of Winter Haven, and my mom went to work at the shop. My dad worked at the shop on his days off when he didn't have anything else to do. Basically, there was an arrangement made. They liked us as a family, and I wasn't like one of these little punk kids running around. So there was an arrangement made. Basically, I had whatever I wanted at my disposal from the shop. It didn't cost anything really. So we got hooked up with them, which helped out and got me exposed a little bit to some people. So B200 A200 kind of opened some doors. I want to say it was A200. I think I was working a race in Okeechobee when I broke my back, which
But you were working the race? You weren't
Yes.
even riding the race?
Nope. Broke my back, went off a cliff.
Which sounds ironic in Okeechobee, Florida.
Well, where they had dug out
Ah.
the ground. When you looked across, it looks like that, but all of a sudden it went about 20 feet down. So I broke my back. Got lucky with that. The pieces went out instead of in. They would have went in. I don't know that I would have been necessarily paralyzed, but it would have been a whole different ball game. We had no idea I broke my back. Got over that. Came back. Yeah, it had to be A200. Came back. Got back to racing. When I came back, I felt better than when I got hurt. So I just kind of picked right up. We got RM250 for me to start transitioning to a 250. That was going good. Was practicing a couple weeks before the first race. Just hit a root sticking out in the turn. It kicked the rear end out, threw me over the bars. Just went into the berm, broke my collarbone, and that one was a pain in the butt. It took a little bit for that to heal just due to the way it broke. When I came back, that's when things kind of started to unravel. I was also driving, so I was 16 in high school. I wanted to race, but things were...
You were having fun.
Yes, things were changing.
Yeah. You had this thing called testosterone that started flowing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We got the Pee-wees. That's got to be tough on these kids. End of the day, Pee-wees, massive pile up in the first corner. So, oof.
There's
That's
you.
crazy. That is me. Hey, I'm there, though. Sorry. So things started unraveling.
Yeah.
You've made it. You've had this growth.
So before I broke my collarbone and things started to unravel, do you know who Dick Burleson is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be coming to Florida to watch me. And when he came to Florida, it was going to be one of them, yay or nay. That's where I was. So the next step was Gene CC full time. That's where it was. Obviously, it went the other way.
Yeah.
So did the 250 thing. Couldn't really. Basically, I wasn't in it. I could ride and do whatever, but I wasn't in it. So I bounced around between 250 and 125 for like a year and a half. And that's when, at that point, I was like, okay, I don't really want to race no more. So I just stopped racing. So I was 17-ish.
Now, did your dad still ride?
Yes, he still rode for a few more years.
So it's still. So the family's still in FTR. At
Yeah,
some point.
he still rode for a few more years. And there was a couple races I went to, and like I remember one specifically. It was just me and him went down for the day. So there were still races I went to. I was just kind of over it and didn't really, it wasn't in my heart anymore. So it just kind of got all out of it. He still raced for a few more years. He didn't get hurt any. He ended up actually having some lung complications from stopping and helping an injured rider at a race. He actually got a fungus in his lungs from the dust. And that started a whole nother chain reaction of shit that's still going on today.
Yeah.
So then he stopped racing. We sold everything.
God, one went down. They've all just stopped in the sand.
See, that's on a side. Like that's I understand kids gotta learn how to ride, but there's a point.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to be in that. That's not fun to them. That's torture.
They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're watching Loretta's. It's the Pee-wees. They literally were going through a sand left-hand rollers corner. A kid falls. and then a kid 10 feet away sees that he falls, so he slows down, he falls, and then like 6 of them fell,
Yeah.
all in the same corner. And I don't think anybody actually hit anybody. They all just fell.
No, they just fell.
Sorry. So
So he sold everything to one of our friends that was still riding and racing. Basically, he made him a deal on the motorhome, trailer, bike, like the whole.
because you guys had upgraded, I remember you guys had upgraded to an RV at that point.
Yeah, we had
Class
a
C, right?
Yeah, we had a Class
Yeah.
C, and we still had the same 6x10 enclosed trailer. When I was riding for that dealership, we were a vendor at the race, so we sold merchandise at the race. But they furnished us a enclosed trailer that we built out. So we had a race trailer and then our small practice trailer. So when all that kind of went to crap and everything ended, like all that stuff went back to them, and then we just had our old stuff that we started with.
Yeah.
He sold all that stuff, and when we got out, we completely got out. Everything was gone.
Was he crushed that you left?
I have no idea.
No, never asked.
Nope.
Never talked about it.
Nope.
I was curious because I went through that with my dad when I was BMX racing.
Yeah.
Tennis was kind of like we've reached everything we could.
Yeah.
I'm always curious. Like there was such a big family dynamic. But let's go to what brought you back. Why you left it, but why did you come back?
I mean, that's been a while
Yeah.
now, so I'm
Yeah.
having to think back of.
But you've been in it back, but sporadically. You've been more consistent the last 4 years.
I know I don't remember specifically how it got brought up. They were racing on the 80-foot road side of Clear Springs. Mm-hmm. There was a race there. My dad was like, "Hey, do you want to just go watch?" And I was like, "Okay." So we walked out there and we ran into some people we knew from way back when, and like that night I was on Craigslist.
And you never stopped.
No, it's gotten way worse.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That was was it 08? Into 08, somewhere in there is when we went out there. Something like that. It was in 08, first 09, somewhere in that time frame. So that's when it started back. So it was, I had 7 years off, 8 years off, something like that. Completely on a bike one day. 7 years later, back on.
I mean, you did start a career.
Yes, I graduated high school. Became a firefighter. I've been doing that total time 20 years now.
I mean, you bought a house. You've
Yeah.
done. It's not like you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You started.
Yeah,
Kind
I finished
of
high school, started a career, went through one wife, on the second one now, have a kid, still same department. Being an adult, doing adult stuff,
Yeah.
acting like a jack, just having fun.
But I guess my question is, you've come back.
Yep.
Now you have a kid doing it.
Yep.
You had success. You were on the verge of. We don't know what would have happened.
Exactly.
But you were on the verge of
The opportunity was there to do
the
something.
next step.
Yes.
You came back, and it's like, I'm doing this for fun. But I've been to your dad and yours house to work on bikes, and I think what I want to get across is they work on things. They have the tools they have, but they will never tell you like, no man, you don't need to buy this. You should buy this. It's better. You still enjoy the study of racing, and I wonder now, do you enjoy the racing or do you enjoy the art of what racing is?
Both. I enjoy
Because
racing.
it's different for you now.
Oh yeah, if it's one of them, like it's.
And I say that he's the one that gives me shit for anything that I do. So I say that coming from, I get to live it. So I'm curious, like you say you like both. For you going out now, there's no sponsors calling.
No.
But what makes you go out there and like, okay, I'll try to ride now?
Just because I can. I enjoy it. It's kind of one of the things. It's like honestly, so it like the old saying goes. I wish I knew then what I know now. If I knew then what I knew now, things would have been different.
We'd be podcasting in an air conditioning studio.
Maybe. Maybe not in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Like now, like, so when we got back into it, obviously being an adult, having your own money. When we first got back into it, I tried doing things the way I did when I was a kid. Like, we use these type of brake pads, or we use this, or we use that. But it's like, wow, that stuff's expensive.
Yeah.
So we're about to have a technical difficulty.
Hey, are we still on? Are we still centered? Sorry, we had a dog getting a chicken.
Not a real one.
We good?
We don't need PETA showing up.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is expensive.
So it was, you know, like when we rode for the dealership, DP Brakes was the supplier for that dealer. We were sponsored through DP Brakes. Came back, oh wow, these things are expensive. So as being an adult, I was like, well, what else can I buy that's cheaper? So when we came back, I started getting more into the researching side of it, learning things on my own, figuring life out, basically.
You are my Encyclopedia Britannica. I just want you to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I read bike stuff way too much.
Yes. I like it, though, because I don't have to.
So I started learning stuff and started figuring stuff out on my own. And then my dad also started learning stuff again. So then you just start putting all that together, and it's just a whole big book of just crap that just falls out whenever you open it. So over the years, I've just I enjoy researching and learning this stuff, and sometimes I enjoy the confrontational side of it a little bit.
We're going to get to that. We're going to finish with that. But we got to get through the family side first. So
Well, it's a family. It's expanding my knowledge to the point where there's certain stuff that only certain people know. The information's out there.
yeah.
But people aren't smart enough to actually do any of the work themselves. They'll go online, they'll ask a question instead of going online and reading something. When you go online and you read something, there's other parts that you learn that nobody else knows.
Yeah.
I like having that other part because when it comes down to a discussion or it comes down to this, somebody will sit there and question you all day long. And when you can sit there and start pulling out like numbers and stuff like that, you just shut them down. And it's like, I'm good.
And this
It's kind of like
And I wanted you to talk about this because this is where our 8-hour conversations come from. You and I both have been running those Tusk tires.
yeah.
They're an off-brand. I've never had a tire that bit so hard in a rut on the side.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's something I got to get. But the tire's fine.
Yeah.
But it was like half the cost of a normal tire and brake pads and sprocket. And it's like, you have saved me, but I've learned it instead of me I asked the question.
Yeah.
And like, hey man, I know you read some sort of white paper, so can you help me out on this and tell me what we're doing? And I've asked you, I'm going to run all the enduros next year. Yes, I'm running the National Enduro Series next year. And you and I have already talked about like, do I need this? No man, don't waste your money. You need this, 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 and this is what we're doing. And it's like, oh, okay, well that makes it a lot easier. Yeah. That knowledge that you talk about, you're trying to pass that on to Gunner.
Slowly. Yes.
Slowly.
We're starting. He's 8 years old. He'll be 9 in November. We've had a few conversations this summer about, hey, you like to know about this stuff because you ask all the time. Here it is. Now let me explain to you where this comes from. And then he's like, so this does, you get this or you get, I'm like, yeah, like that's why this equals this.
So are you pushing because of what you went through, family dynamic, success, failure, breakage, you still put your kid on a bike. But I've witnessed you practicing out here. You don't push him to go be you. And he enjoys riding. He enjoys riding out here with you. Are you satisfied with that?
Yep. So when he started riding at the house, because obviously on a PW50 you can ride a PW50 anywhere. They make no sound.
You had a great track there, too.
Yeah.
That was...
So he started riding when he was 4.5. So I pushed him a little too hard at one point, like in the very, very beginning. Because I'm like, and it had to do with turning. It's like, you're almost 5. You can hit a turn and berm and like half the time. The other half, like you have no idea what you're doing.
I feel like you're talking to me right now.
Well, that too.
We've had that same discussion.
And I pushed him a little bit too hard. He shut down for about a month or 2. And I just, okay. And then hey, you want to ride? Okay. And I just let him go out there and do his thing. And occasionally I'll say something. And back then, when he was little, like he watched bikes on YouTube, Racer TV for the GNCC. Like he watched that stuff religiously. Little bastard picked a lot of stuff up on his own.
He's got great form.
Yeah.
I was watching the other day.
Very little of that is me. Some of it is, but a lot of that is him watching this. He watches this. He also studies me when I ride. Because Mindy will tell me, when I come in or that night, whatever. He's like, Gunner said this or Gunner said that. So he watches me. Then he tries to mimic what I do. So between him studying on his own and then studying me, he's picked up what to do and he does on his own.
Yeah.
And
he just doesn't have that competitive drive at this point. And as a dad, like he does soccer, he's done karate. The kid is, you should buy some Gunner Crowley sand art, by the way. You can get it for a good price. But like he has his own life.
Yeah.
But he enjoys that. And I'm just wondering from a competitive aspect, coming from a dad who had a daughter who didn't do anything that dad did.
He has the natural ability to ride a motorcycle. It is 100% there. I can see it all day long because when we put him on a PW, he was 4.5, put him on it within 10 minutes on his own. Didn't have to do anything. Hey, that's the throttle. You twist that, the faster you go. Hey, that's the back brake. You want to stop, use that. That's the front. Don't worry about that one right now. We'll deal with that one later.
Yeah.
And same thing with the clutch, learning out here.
Yeah.
I mean, within 30 minutes, like, okay.
And this is, by the way, out here is a sand pit. So
It's
gotten better.
It's way better than what it used to be since you cleared everything off.
But it's still like you got to ride.
Yes.
Like we always joke, if you can ride out here, you can pretty much ride.
Yes.
Wherever.
Yep.
But as a young kid trying to learn that skill, that's what I said. Like and you can see like he enjoys riding. You guys come out and do 40-minute motos, and he's like, okay, cool, and he gets a snack, and he's good. And you're okay with, this is how good I was. You don't care if it's because it's not for you, it's for him.
Yeah. Whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
If he said I don't want to ride period anymore, I'd be like, okay, are you sure? If he said yeah, I'd be like, okay, it is what it is. I know realistically at some point he will probably come back, but I've let him make his own choices even at this young age. What do you want to do?
Does him riding drive you to ride, or is that still internal for you?
No, I still like doing my thing. I like riding with him. Like when we go race, but sometimes I like, let me just go out here and show my ass for 5 laps.
Yeah.
Just let me come out here and
Well, you did that the other day. You guys were out riding, and all of a sudden I look out, and you're just burning laps, and Dad's standing up on the hill.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't have a stopwatch checking times on you.
Well, I mean, we were
Suspension
playing,
testing.
Yeah, we were playing with suspension.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, it's still there. Like, it's. My dad says I'm not as fast as I was when I was a kid.
Are you cleaner now?
Yes, I'm way smarter and way smoother than I was.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously you should. It's kind of weird, like with the gap that was there. It took a long time, and destroying my wrist, breaking this arm, a couple other things to get my head right. Like, okay, you're not 16 no more. Slow down. Once I slowed down and kind of figured out, okay, this shit don't matter no more. Like, just go ride. When I did that, I started.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, that'll be my final question on the racing side of things is you do it now for fun. You see the smoothness when you go out and race. You had a successful year in Enduros. You got a podium overall for the Enduros this year. We went out of state a couple times. There was one race that you even came. You're like, ooh, I don't know what we're doing. Then there was one race you came in and you're like, that felt good.
Yeah.
You didn't finish where you wanted, but you felt good about, like, I couldn't have done any more. Like, I rode good.
Yeah.
Are you at that point in your life like, this is fun and I like the challenge of what can I do better now? Or is it still, if I can get the plaque, I want the plaque?
So on Saturday with pre-mod, I got promoted to A. Obviously, when I came back to racing in general, per FTR rules, I followed the rules, letter of the law. I came back from 7 years off to ride an A Open. That's the stupidest thing to do, but per letter of the law, that's what you do. And I did that. I tried my best for numerous races. Then I petitioned and went to B. Rode B for several years. And, had some good races here and there. Never won anything, but had some decent races. Went to plus 30 when that class was created. Same thing. Never won any races, but had some good races. Pulled some really good starts against some really fast guys, which is cool to, like, beat Sean Clark to the first turn or the first two turns, and then you just kind of ease over, like, come on.
I'm going to watch the GoPro.
Yeah.
I'm watch you pass me.
I just want to see what I look like from behind for
Yeah.
2 turns, and then we'll call it a day. So, went to plus 30. Plus 30 is when things started clicking. I showed up my first race in plus 30 and got third. It was like, And then it kind of started going up from there instead of going down.
Yeah.
Then went to vet, same thing. I haven't won anything in vet. In vet B, had some good races. I think my best finish should have been second, but I got dinged for a technicality. But we did enduros. I got promoted to A per AMA, so I just went ahead, did A across the board. I know my days of winning anything, they're over. Like, me winning an A level race against, even if half the class is there,
Yeah.
is slim to none. But I earned an A back on my bike. That's where I am.
Yeah.
I'll stay there until I get an X or whatever it is when you hit whatever
Yeah.
age it is. I'm an average A rider on a good day. I have my brilliant moments where, oh, that's fucking cool. But it is what it is. That's where I am. I'm happy where I am.
You had one of those at not Sam Sula, at Hogwa. I remember we were watching it, like, you were dead last off the start, like dead last, like you weren't even in the same.
Yeah.
And then we were sitting at the finish, and I think he's in third.
Yeah.
And it was like, that happened in 12 miles. That's pretty solid. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's good.
And that was on a 450 that I practiced out here a couple times
Yeah.
on. Never raced in the woods.
So I got a question for you. Do you feel like you're a better rider now or a better technician?
Both.
Ooh.
I know so back growing up, like, I kind of learned, my dad taught me stuff, obviously. But, like, he would come home from work, and, like, I would have my 80 or even my 125 at the time just tore completely apart. So I kind of self-taught how to do stuff. Back to the research part, I've learned how to do other stuff. This does this does that. So I'm better at working on stuff. I know what things mean, what things equal what, why. That's the biggest one, is why does this do this? Mm-hmm. So on the mechanical side of things, like, I would say in general, we are pretty solid, which is why it's very rare for us to have any issues. Normally, if we have a DNF, normally it is some oddball, off the wall thing that's like.
You mean like a shock failing or whatever the hell
Well,
that
I
was?
mean, yeah, like the shock head failed from the last time it was serviced
Yeah.
to me riding. It formed a leak and was leaking. Didn't really pay attention or know until I got out on the track, and it was like something is just not right
Yeah.
because
But that's one of those odd
yeah,
issues that you
just like his last year on his KTM or Husky 50 at Dade City when the spark plug cap popped off. Well, come to find out, it popped off because of the dielectric grease we were using. There was one different ingredient in it that caused the grease to expand,
see, that's the funny stuff that most
Which-
people don't know.
caused it to pop off and separate. Which, just looking at it at a glance, it looked like the plug or the spark plug cap itself had failed. Well, come to find out, when went back to the truck, took the tank off, took everything apart. Okay, this is what happened. Put it right back on there. No big deal. So like that's kind of the stuff, just a random, but it's few and far
Yeah.
between.
But you learn from it, and now you know.
Yeah, don't buy that.
Yeah. All right. So racing is done. We're going to end it with this. And I don't know how long that'll take, but we're going to end. Why do you enjoy the controversy so much?
It's just fun.
But the
It's
funny
fun.
thing,
It's fun being right.
but do you enjoy the
So-
assholishness, or do you wish that there was a smoother way that you could say it without being so? Because I don't care if it's FTR, GNCC, Supercross. Heck, we're looking at Loretta's right now, and a dude posted his Loretta's thing, and you were like, "That's the dumbest thing in the world. Why would you do that?" And I just wonder, not necessarily are you wrong, but why do you enjoy that?
It's so. My dad is not controversial at all. He is very politically correct, and from some of that had to do with his position in the fire service. My mom is more boisterous and always has been, so I get some of it from her. The other part I get from my uncle, who basically I'm a remake of him from what everybody's told me, and from growing up around him. Pretty much, he said what he wanted to say, and if you like it, great. If not, the hell
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, he was 100% right. He just said it. He said it the way a lot of things should be said, but they're not. A lot of things are just sugar coated and to cater to the masses, so you don't upset people or hurt their feelings. Well, sometimes you need to get your point across, and somebody needs their feelings hurt, and normally that sometimes fixes things and changes the outcome of them. You baby them, and
Dude, these kids are on 50s doubling the 10 Commandments.
they shouldn't be on 50s if they're doing that.
That's ridiculous.
They should be on 60s, 65s.
Maybe those are 50s, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the Cobras and the
Yeah.
mini
Yeah.
KTMs. Dude, I don't even think I could double through the 10 Commandments. So you like the controversy. That leads me to, you've had so many opinions and arguments and discussions and things on FTR. You've been through FTR, through what it was, and we all know it's not going back to what it was. But is there a way to kind of right the ship?
Not without being more like me.
In the organization, I mean, I know that it's a not-for-profit, but you can't fault a company for, holy shit, we've gone from 500 riders to 1,000 riders. We're bringing in the cash.
Yeah.
For the betterment of the riders, safety, family security, so on and so forth, I think there probably should be some changes. But the same thing's happening in motocross. The same thing happens at GNCC. The same thing, we had a rider pass away at Dade City this past week. We are also labeled as those thugs. They posted the video this
Yes.
week of the thugs riding on golf course. Well, guess what? That's not us. We
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
We've had dreams of like, oh man, that course looks cool. I would.
Yeah.
But we've also had dreams of us riding on culverts, jumping culverts.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're not those people. There are also people that race cars, and there's people that street race. Two different things. Why is the motorcycle world look so down upon of like, those are terrible people. We got to shut them down.
I just think I don't know specifically, but I mean, I'm sure in general it stems back to like when you go way, way back, like the Hells Angels and all
Are we
that.
still that far back though?
I'm sure if you ask some old person that hates, like, where does it come, and I'm sure it probably has something to do with something that happened to them back in the 50s or something.
Are the Wheelie Boys the new Hells Angels?
Yes.
And I know people, you guys stop watching YouTube. They're thugs.
Yeah.
I'm not talking of race.
99% of what you see out there that they're riding is stolen property.
And they're riding illegally.
Oh yeah.
It happens here. Like, we have people ride dirt bikes and side-by-sides and four-wheelers down the side of the road in our little community, and it drives me bananas.
Yep.
It uglies the community.
Yep. I agree.
Stop that. Let us go do a sport.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know you have opinions on that, but on the racing side, the FTR is an organization that promotes racing. They have enduros and they have hare scrambles throughout Florida. Right now, it is the only series in Florida. If you want to race in Florida, you got to race in the series. And there's quite a few people. I don't think it's a silent minority. I think there's a lot of people who are not happy with the structure of what FTR is right now.
I think so. I know, like, Randy Fall, who's the president, posted on when one time, I can't remember what it was the guy brought up, but he did publicly say that when this term is up, he is done. He will not rerun. He will not run again ever. He's done good things for FTR, but he's also done bad things. It's time for him to step aside. There's one person I hope that does take over and tries to correct things. I think that person will. He's controversial like me.
Yeah.
He's not liked by a lot, especially the older regime.
But do you have to be liked to get stuff done?
With the current regime that's there's that clique that, and there was some stuff posted the other day about something with somebody that was in that clique that apparently was done backdoor. But things would just magically happen, magically appear. That kind of stuff needs to stop. We need to quit catering to the masses. With them, I'm really curious to see this season what Saturday looks like and what Sunday looks like with sportsman class being gone.
Yep.
I've seen where some of them have bought pre-mod bikes. So I think like pre-mod B especially is going to probably be pretty decent size for a while. I think there's going to be possibly some riders being DQ'd out of beginner because there's been some that have hinted around about, going back, and you can't do that. So it'll be interesting to see this next season how things kind of unfold. I personally hope that there's a drop in attendance. If some of those masses could be thinned out and some of the ones you don't want at the events just be run off, it'd be better for everybody. It's not.
And by attendance, and I'm going to be the other side.
Rider
by attendance, it's not just because our properties aren't big enough to handle all these people.
Correct.
That's the overarching problem. It's
Correct.
not just the attendance, the people. It's we don't have the space or the track layout or the safety crew.
But
or
it
whatever.
comes back to you got mom and dad and one kid. They go out, they buy a $100,000 motorhome. They buy a $30,000 enclosed trailer that's fully finished for a Pee Wee rider. Now you have this rig that is massive. That's, just say it's a semi. Well, when you multiply that, you run out of room real quick. If these people would quit trying to be, thinking they're going to be the next big thing, look, come down for the freaking day, throw the bike in the back of the truck, or you can have an enclosed truck. Who cares? The space issue would still be there a little bit, but I don't think it would be as big of an issue as it is now. I mean, me personally, like, I have no problem throwing a bike in the back of the truck or in the trailer and just going up for the day. Like, honestly, I am perfectly fine with that. I'd rather do that because I don't sleep worth a crap at the track anyway. If more people did that, the space issue wouldn't be as big of a problem.
But I have to say, son and well, now it doesn't matter. You have mom, dad, you have everybody that race. Anybody can race. But let's say mom is just feeding the family. Well, mom doesn't want to sweat up during the day, so we got to get her an RV to hang out in and fix food and what's wrong? What's wrong with
you
having
need to
some
stop
comfort?
opening this can of worms because this is going to lead to some other conversations.
But what's wrong with having comfort?
There's too much comfort in this world. The people need to. I understand.
This coming from a dude that we go in a Jeep with a trailer, and if it's hot, it's hot, and if it's cold, it's cold.
Yeah. I mean,
I am looking at an RV, but
there's a time and there's a place for everything. In general, things have been softened down. I'm trying to use correct words.
You're right.
I'm doing good.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Things have been softened down too much. I understand some days it's freaking hot. We go to some races and, especially the first of the season or at the very end of our season where it's just like, God, will it stop, Can the clouds just come over for 2 hours, just to cool things off? Is comfort worth, and some people are like, oh yeah, is comfort worth being asshole and dead and upside down? They ain't got a pot to piss in, but they got $100,000 RV, $30,000 trailer, a $15,000 50 sitting like.
Yeah.
If you want to stay cool, get easy up. Go get you a little generator. Hook up a couple fans, and guess what? Just air moving most of the time cools you off. Or your enclosed trailer, put a portable AC in it, put a roof unit on it or whatever. Like, you can be comfortable and keep things simple. You ain't got to be all fancy, end all, be all. Like,
Yeah, the off-road side has definitely, and I don't say this disrespectfully, the off-road side has definitely become motocross 0.2.
oh yes, absolutely.
It is that way.
Yes.
Like, and it is crazy because I race on Sundays. I get a hotel Saturday night. I show up Sunday morning, and I race and I go home. But there are people that will come in Friday, and they're there. Mm-hmm. They're stripping down bikes. They're eating. The kids are running around on one wheels. It's a whole weekend, and that kid's racing one class for 25 minutes, or maybe they're up in the hour and a half class, or maybe dad races too. But it's an entire production, and then they're mad because, well, I don't want to race on Sunday afternoon, and we get home too late. Well,
and see, that's where they wouldn't survive the way it used to be because we still had the 2 o'clock race when you came around.
Yeah.
So you had the morning race at 10, then you had 12, and then you had 2.
Yeah.
Well, at 2, you got done at 4. So realistically, you were getting out of there around darkish or before. Like, it's the way it was.
When I first started racing and I got into FTR to the afternoon, because once I did beginner, and then we raced at 1 o'clock, I think it was 1, and you were done by 3. I'm never a fast person. We stopped. I'd eat a snack. We were always like one of the last people to leave.
Yeah.
It's getting dark. We'd go to a GNCC, and when I had to race the afternoon race, you just know, like, hey, this is. But that's also that commitment of, if you race cars, if you do,
baseball.
Yeah.
My nephew plays competitive baseball. They play from Saturday morning until Sunday night, and the kids go to school the next day. And
Yeah.
for some reason, racing, we fuss because you've got an RV. Your kids can sleep on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
They could sleep in there all night. Like
Yeah.
when you get home, just go to sleep.
Yeah.
And get them up and go to school. And I don't feel sympathy for that part of it, but I also understand on the argument side. I understand like, hey, mom wants an RV, cool. I just don't understand the RV with the 40-foot trailer and for pee-wee kids. Like, I am baffled by that, but I never went through that.
It's all that boils down to is look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. There is a youth rider that rides motocross. Her family has, well, her grandparents have a lot of money. All of that money has been funneled into her racing from the time she was old enough to ride. She is 100% homeschooled. They have a full-blown toter home with it's at least 30 feet. It's not a stacker trailer, but it's a big damn trailer. Full-blown practice track at the house. When they're there, they stay on the road. But these people were at Bartow in Mex one night when we were there racing. This full setup, they have like the whole 9 yards for one little girl. One little girl. She has like 5 bikes out there. Now, you came to Bartow to race. She rode like 2 classes. I think one was a 50 class and one of them was a 65 class. You drove a toter home, pulling a 30, 40-foot trailer. 6 bikes out there, full in production. All that is look at me, look at me, look at me. The little girl, she's not allowed to come out of there unless it's race time. She stays inside, not allowed to even talk to other kids. Like all they're doing, like with that scenario, all they're doing, they're screwing that kid up. At some point, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be bad.
And there's no, it sounds terrible. At this point, there's no future for women motocrossers.
No.
Like, I don't mean that rudely.
Off-road side, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, motocross, because they killed the woman series, like, yeah, it's dead. But like those kind of people, like, okay, you have money, cool. But why do you need to show up like this?
Yeah.
It's look at me, look what I have. There are a couple people that are, in my opinion, 100% justified in their setups. Like, you take Kyle McAfee, for example. He races 2 to possibly 3 classes on a weekend. He has one son that races up to 2 classes on a weekend. He has his youngest son who's racing Pee-wees. He has his daughter who's racing Pee-wee quads. And then there are other stuff. So you have a truck full of kids and a bunch of, like, so he has a massive setup.
Yeah.
You know what? He's justified in what he needs, because if
He
you
needs
look,
a car hauler.
well, that's basically what he's upgraded to.
Yeah.
But he has a big motorhome. Well, guess what? It's him and 3 kids, a dog, whatever.
Yeah.
And his parents also come to the races. And then he needs a trailer to tote all this. Okay, well, guess what? He's justified in what he needs. I understand that.
And he also races other places, too.
Yeah. I understand that. That makes sense to me. But that would be like you showing up in a full-blown Class A with, well, when we went to the first Enduro of the year, Little Brown Jug, and we were coming down the back road right at dark coming into the property, and you had the guy from South Florida with that massive diesel pusher and that massive trailer driving up there with one bike in it.
Yeah.
Why? I understand you have money. But that's just stupid. Like that's. I understand it's comfort, but guess what? Our cheap ass Holiday Inn that we stayed in was just as fucking comfortable.
Yeah. And we had some good views too.
Yeah. So like, I just
And I
none
think
of that impresses me. It doesn't impress me. I think it's a waste. That mentality is some of what has caused issues as well. Because you have people will look at me. Well, I want it to be this way, and that's the masses that have been catered to.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the. And I think, do you think FTR grew faster than it was capable of growing? Because it kind of happened exponentially.
It
really
happened
quickly.
right before COVID, and then during that time period, because everybody was like, "Oh well, if we go outside, we don't have to follow whatever you know." They started out, and that's when it exploded. It was right before that is when the number started inching up. But I remember previous to that, in numerous meetings, it was like, yeah, we want more people, we want more people, we want more people, and then, boom,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh shit, what do we do? And it's been, unfortunately, downhill in my opinion since then. Like it's just. I've had issues, like my parents have had issues, but most of the time it's not. We're not going out looking for problems. We've had a couple races, because my parents park with Roland and a couple other people, and when they pull in, they're side by side, just like this.
And they're senior citizens who are very set in their way.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yes. But I mean, they're not forming the squares or
Yeah.
any of this other. Like they're single file line, just like this, and we've had numerous people pull in behind us. Okay, that's fine. But they pull in so close that you can't drop the back of the trailer down for the gate to open and get anything out. And then when you say, hey, would you mind just sliding over 20 feet because, hey, I got to get this out or my bike or golf, whatever, they want to fucking fight about it. And it's like, those people, be gone.
Yeah.
Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That's one of those issues that there's always the bad in the bunch, but because there's more people, there's more of them.
yes.
Damn, I had one more question I wanted to ask you. Give me just a second. We've talked about the growth. We've talked about. Oh, you've been on the board. I think you've been a part of a club. I think I've also been a part of a club. I've also been on the board. Why are the clubs? Because that's what FTR was built on. FTR was built on clubs.
Yes.
The clubs host the race. It was at one point. It was the fun part was being on a club and going to build a track. I learned, and this is me. I learned. I just like racing. I don't really. I just want to go race.
Yeah.
I want to go here and race, there and race. I like the clubs. I still have people that are friends that
Yeah.
are on clubs. Why has the club model started having a hard time getting members?
I mean, honestly, I really don't know specifically. I'm sure you could pick any topic and go off of it with it. I mean, people are lazier. They don't want to work. They don't want to do stuff. They just want stuff given to them. I mean, that's probably one of the big ones.
But am I lazy because I just like racing?
No, and some people just want to race. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, if Gunner was racing, and I know, like, everybody does it, and, like, sometimes I don't, like, just take Kyle, for example, being in the official positions that he's been in, having all his kids that race, somehow he manages to do all that and still race, and, like,
Yeah.
I know with the way I do things and my routine that it doesn't work. I can't do that and be competitive or there not be a consequence to it. Like, if Gunner wants to race with the minis at 12:15, that's fine. But realistically, especially at this point, there's no way I can race the same day at 2 o'clock because he will be finishing, especially being slower and just starting out, right when I would be like there's not enough time. Some people manage that. Some people will have it figured out with the way I do things. Like I don't have the time. I can't do that. So it also comes down to like working events. Like you have a kid that races. Well, the kid wants to race. Okay, well, if I'm working the event and I'm assigned way out, like it just.
Yeah.
I know some people have it figured out or they do this or like, but
Do you see the club model going away?
it has to. It has. They either have to go realistically full blown business, and you have paid this, paid that, and like run it as a business, or you have to shrink it way back down.
Because we went to those 2 enduros that we went to. Those are private places.
Yeah,
And they're clubs.
yeah,
And we noticed there were younger members that had joined because they were out there working with their wives.
yeah,
And there were old members.
yeah,
But there was the young people were out there working, and I thought, well, the club model still works.
yeah,
But for some reason, FTR, we're having a hard time building tracks because we can't get but 5 members to come out and build a track.
yeah,
And there's 1,000 people at the race. I'm sure that each club could get 20 active members
Yeah.
and still have enough people to
Yeah.
run races.
But I've also heard stories from numerous people of they've gone out and tried to help clubs, and when they show up and they try to do this or suggest this, the older regime shuts them down and basically runs them off. Well, it's one of them things like you're not going to stay an abusive relationship, but for so long, and then
Yeah.
it's like, well, screw you, you're on your own.
yeah.
So
And I would like the record to reflect, I didn't leave any of the, I actually left one of the clubs because I stopped racing. I stopped racing
Yeah.
for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And the other club I've never actually joined, but I've been to meetings and I put input in, and now with my next year's schedule, I actually had reached out and said, hey, if you guys put on a race, I actually want to come, I want to come help just because I want to see what that's like. I haven't done that in a while. And it is kind of fun being in charge of like, ooh, this is our section.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, what can we do? And
yeah.
but I'd love to see FTR still flourish. It's the only thing in town. I mean, if you race in Florida, it's the only thing in town.
Yeah.
And other entities have tried, but they've never succeeded because FTR still kind of got its thing.
I don't think it's necessarily that. It's nobody's ever officially tried to challenge FTR. I know there's been a couple that like they put on like these 2 or 3 race little whatever, like during off season.
Mm-hmm.
But normally the people doing those for the most part are from FTR. So like there's nothing going on, so they create, hey, well, let's do these couple little races and that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's cool to have those options during the off season. I mean, I think if some of these places did that consistently, they would have a consistent turnout. Like people know, okay, during the off season, we're going to have these 3 events at this facility and this at this facility. Like people show up and start doing it. But nobody has officially ever challenged FTR.
Because it's too big to fail?
I wouldn't say it's too big to fail because it is failing. It's just failing slowly. I think the groundwork to get it off the ground and start it would be very time and labor intensive to do it.
Yeah.
I think it would take a lot. Like the biggest thing would be, say you're like, okay, we're gonna start a year ahead of time. We're gonna do 5 races. All right, well, we got to have either 5 pieces of property, or we've got to be able to do something cool 5 different times on the same piece of property, and just kind of go from there, and like just the little things, adding it together.
Yeah.
It's doable. I think if somebody did it, they would be successful if they did it right. It's just somebody doing it.
And you're talking about a for-profit model versus the not-for-profit.
Not even necessarily, just doing something different. Because I mean, if you look at it, like you have GNCC, you have National Enduro, you have U.S. Sprint Enduro, you have the other Sprint Enduro series. I can't remember the name of it. There's U.S. Sprint Enduro, then the other one. You got J-Day. Like, you have all these other series that are the same thing in the same regions, and they're all successful.
Yeah. They also don't step on one another most of the time.
True, and that's the thing is there would have to be some mutual respect. Like, okay, well, FTR's got 3 events this month. Okay, well, there's one weekend off. Well, we could do an event, but realistically, our turnout's going to be crap. Well, next month they only have one event. All right, well, let's do one that. There would have to be some mutual respect, and I think, and that's how those other series are. Is they don't, in general, they don't schedule stuff on top of each other. They may be back-to-back weekends, but they're not, competing with each other day for day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they don't like each, because I know on one of the things I listen to, I guess, U.S. Sprint Enduro and the other Sprint Enduro series, there is some competitiveness between the two series, and there's, I guess, some little bickering back and forth.
Kind of like 2 arena cross series.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in general, they don't try to screw each other because they know, well, if they have one this weekend and I have one this weekend, unless I'm on this side of the country and you're on this side, like, we're just going to screw each other. So, okay, I don't like you, but look, have yours this weekend. I'll do mine next, whatever. So there would still have to be that little bit of mutual respect, but it could be done. In Florida, unfortunately, I think having access to the property would be the biggest hurdle.
And that is a big issue for us with everything growing up. We're losing. I mean, there are places that you used to race and that I used to race that we don't touch anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I would say Central Florida, like where we live, is screwed. You go south, you have a pretty decent area that's not touched, and I think a lot of it in our lifetime won't be touched because it's not buildable or it's state or government property, whatever. You go up, like where we've been in North Florida, I know it's a little bit of a drive, but
we used to do that.
Yeah, there's still a lot of property up there that's nice. Like, you don't feel like you're in Florida.
I remember one year we raced in Madison, which is at the top of Florida, and we raced at the Indian Reservation in Miami.
Yeah.
In cypress stumps.
Yeah.
And that was part of the FTR series.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing, I think everybody's gotten spoiled because every race is in Central. I mean, you go to Palaca once.
Yeah.
And you go to Okeechobee or Indiantown.
Yeah. The average drive is like 2 hours for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, we've all gotten spoiled.
Yeah.
And we're getting 11 races a year and we don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But we used to go to Chipley.
Yeah.
I mean, we go to Chipley, Madison. We went to Palaca twice in 1 year. Mm-hmm. And that's a 2.5, 3 hour drive. And we'd go to South Florida and we'd go, and you're like, dang, man. And now I get ticked off when it's like, oh, do I need to get a hotel room or can we make this in the morning? And I think we've gotten a little bit spoiled off that because it is a true Florida series.
Yeah.
And I know land's hard, but like you said, there's land in South Florida because I drive down there a lot. And there's land up in North Florida because my daughter lives in Tallahassee and there's a lot of green space out there.
Yeah. It's like we've talked about several times. There's something missing because I can go to a landowner and say, hey, I want to bring my side-by-side out here or my jacked up four-wheeler or whatever and come out here and drink and show my ass. Oh, yeah, come on. I want to come out here and do something responsible and pay you a bunch of money. No, like there's something missing.
And we might even clean up after ourselves when we leave.
Like there's something missing.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what that is, but
you
something's not right.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that right part is.
Yeah, and I don't know either. And I don't even know, and that's one of those research things that I don't even know I have friends who work in state government, upper ends. And I have friends involved in national racing, car-wise.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what to ask them to start that conversation. Like, I've talked to horse people. You walk onto my horse barn and you get kicked,
it's your fault.
Yeah.
I walk onto your property, sign my release, and I crash my motorcycle and I sue you. Hold on, time out. Like,
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yep.
I mean, that, not to touch this incident that much, but when that 15-year-old girl died horseback riding, competing, same thing my daughter does.
Yeah.
She was crushed, dead. There was a couple days of news, and then we moved on.
Yeah.
This poor little kid dies
Yeah.
at a track that's been around for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
We're getting phone calls from news cameras. We're wanting to know what's wrong. There's attorneys looking to sue. Dude, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
There's kids that get hit with baseballs and soccer balls every day that have cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
You work those things.
Yeah.
We don't stop them playing. Why are we so opposed to this? We're watching right now little kids, 4 to 6 year old, compete at the national level, whatever your opinion.
Yeah.
They're riding motorcycles. Something's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, like last year when Jeremy Shuttleworth was killed at Loretta's in that first turn crash. Like, a horrible deal, like just
Yeah.
shitty incident, but you know, it's still going on. Like, it
it's-
happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but it's something that we're all willing to take that responsibility for. And I don't know why you want to shut it down. And it's the people that want to shut it down that don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
And they won't give you the opportunity to. Because
Yeah.
all they think about is these kids riding the dirt bikes through their yard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we had to put up a fence so that people wouldn't come ride on our property.
Yeah.
Like, hey, guess what? Someone owns it. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Let's go ride on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I wish FTR would take a lead.
Yeah.
Teach, educate. Like, educate.
Yeah.
Let other people handle the racing. Educate. And realize, hey, there's a place to do this stuff.
Yeah.
But is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you? I have to thank your wife for letting you come out and do this.
She don't care.
Thank God I don't have to listen to it.
Actually, no. She wanted to come and just sit like right there and stare at me the whole time,
She could have come.
just to see how I do.
Oh,
This is me being on here. This is a big deal.
hey,
So I'm being.
you did good.
I'm being analyzed.
You did good.
Well, yeah, I can talk.
But now we can do a podcast while we're driving down the road. We can just
Yeah, but then if we get in a wreck, it just causes a whole other thing.
no, we don't look at it. We just you can look at it. Whoever's not driving can look at it.
No, not really. I mean,
Well,
I bet-
we covered your history.
yeah,
We
pretty
covered
much, yeah.
what FTR was, what it is now. We've talked about technical side, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. Is you've been such a mentor to me, and I know you and your dad give me shit, but honestly, you guys have helped me be able to go. Like, I wouldn't have even thought about doing the National Enduro Series next year, but because of the simplicity of the way you guys treat, okay, you need to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I can
Yeah.
I can do that.
Well,
Oh, okay.
and that's like there's some things we do that we just make it simple. There's a lot of things that a lot of people do that overcomplicate things and actually screw things up. Like when he was on his Husky 50s and even his PW. All the issues that everybody else had, we didn't have. We did things a little bit different. And when you looked and talked to these other Pee Wee dads or read anything online, they would look at you like you were out of your freaking mind. Guess what? It worked. Didn't have a problem. Didn't DNF races. We have one DNF on a 50, and that's because of dielectric grease expanding and pushing this. Like, that's a very odd, like, just random
Yeah.
thing that happened. Like, who would have thought? You know?
By the way, the dude that said his brake caliper jumped out,
Absolutely not. Physically impossible.
put that on the. Even Mike and I were talking. He's like, "Dude, I got to ask you," and I'm like, "Not possible.
No.
Not,
he put
not-
he put that in there.
wrong."
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it is physically impossible. The only way that could happen is the rotor would have to break complete. Like it would have to shear off. Like no, it's just no.
Okay.
There ain't no way that could happen.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, go find it.
it's crazy, and it was.
But
like,
you know, I actually saw another one of those the other day too. Same thing.
no way.
Yep. So there's more than one nut mass in the world.
Hey, I suck at mechanical stuff. Even I've gotten my brake pads put on properly, so I can do it. But I want to thank you for joining me. I know this was out of your comfort zone, but you and I talk all the time, and I like, even though I don't always like your opinion, I like your opinions.
Oh, you secretly like it. You just don't know. You just don't want. You're like a woman. You don't want to agree. It shows weakness. Shows dominance. Damn it.
But we did get to watch. We've watched all the little peewees ride. I think the day at Loretta's is almost done. Micros, they're finishing up with micros, which I actually appreciate that because I know they've groomed the track a little bit before they went, but they're riding at the end of the day, and I appreciate that. Hey, by the way, Barrett Counts from Ocala, Florida, 3rd place in the Micro 2 4 to 6 Limited. Congratulations, man! Way to bring home a medal. Now you got to do it 2 more times so you can bring home the big one.
Yep.
But this kid's pumped. He's like, oh, look at, he's got his hand on his hips. He's pumped. But what kind of gear is he wearing? Fast House?
I don't know what that is. I can't really tell.
He's got his bib on still.
I was seeing what it was to see how expensive it is.
Oh. But I want to thank Jason for joining me.
Yeah.
Yes, we had airboats. We had people with their race cars go by. We had dogs barking. We had, I think, a kid walk across at one point.
I think that was Michelle and Gunner.
Yeah, we had a camera. We had a camera shuffle due to dogs playing with toys. But we made it through, and I want to thank you for episode 21. Cheers to everybody. We are now of the adult age. Derac will be back next week. I'm sure we're going to hear about their celebration. We're going to hear about Wrap Up Loretta. We'll cover all the kids that won awards at Loretta's from Florida. And if we have any updates on Rylan Munson, supposedly there's some big news coming out of HBI here soon. I don't know if they're getting different bikes, new engine packages. I'm not sure. But they're having a blast with the Thai Master Pool sponsorship. That is getting the local race team some well-deserved positive press. So, Jason, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Trey Heath. This has been sponsored by Michelle and Trey Real Estate, and even though Derac's not here, DBS Custom Fabrication and Handyman Services. We will see you all next week. Bye-bye.